Hello and welcome back to Skypothesis. We are two brothers on a quest to provide you with unique character builds to give you plenty of reasons to jump back into this fantastic RPG. This month's build is a civilized orc mage who uses alchemy boosted elemental cloak spells to passively damage enemies around her in a wide radius. She keeps herself safe by using the Creation Club's Staff of Hasedoki and relying on her high movement speed to stay out of harm's way. The Ring of the Wind's enchantment is enhanced with Fortify Illusion potions. The combination of elements creates a fun, highly mobile playstyle. We've always enjoyed characters that break their stereotypical molds, and the idea of a civilized orc made for a fun roleplay experience. So pull up a chair and join us as we start with a backstory for the elemental Baroness. In the height of the Great War, a noble baron in High Rock fell in love with an orcish swordstress in his guard. The pair endured family disapproval from both sides, but were married nonetheless and started a family. Elder Scrolls lore says that children from interracial couples usually inherit the mother's characteristics, so in spite of having a Colovian father, the young Baroness has the appearance of an orc. She was raised into high society and given lessons on magic, literature, and all things a child would rather avoid. She would sneak out of the family estate whenever she could to play in the woods and streams of High Rock, but would always be toted back home by one of the family guards. As she grew older, she inherited wealth, but never fit in. She was under greater scrutiny in High Rock society for being an orc, and had to carefully navigate the political scene of nobility. Business failures or mishaps with etiquette would give racist naysayers plenty to attack her with. We imagine the gourmet keeps his identity a secret to prevent being treated differently due to being an orc. In spite of her wealth, she never felt good being handed anything. Perhaps it was the orcish pride in her blood, but she wanted to earn her success. She used her inheritance to start her own merchant caravans. It began with simple, high-demand goods, but as the years passed and her trade network grew, she began to gravitate towards dealing in rare alchemical ingredients, as she found them interesting herself. She traveled around High Rock, Hammerfell, and Cyrodiil, and even trips into Skyrim's port cities to trade, looking for alchemists to buy and sell to. She accompanied her caravans whenever she could, not willing to make money off of anything she wasn't willing to do herself. On one fateful day of Last Seed, she was en route from Bruma to Falkreath in her first ever journey through the Jarls, when her caravan made a wrong turn and got lost. A snowstorm had blinded them, and without visibility, they blunder into an Imperial ambush and are mistaken for Stormcloaks. All but her are cut down on the spot by a volley of arrows. Something strikes her in the back of her head, and she is knocked out cold. She awakes on the prison cart, and your roleplay as the elemental Baroness begins. She grieves for her employees lost in the skirmish. She's never seen all-out warfare like this, and the events of the day are horrifying. After fleeing Helgen, she realizes that for the first time in her life, she has nothing. No money, no family guards following her around, no reputation to uphold, nothing. She is still sad for her merchant caravan, but the pain fades into acceptance, and a new feeling of liberation comes over her. The pressures of high society are gone, and the frozen mountain peaks of Skyrim never looked so inviting. She feels like a bird that's been trapped in a golden cage finally set free. While in Riverwood, she sits down and drops a fishing line in the water for the first time in her life and remembers what fun feels like. Events in the early game quickly lead to the Jarl of Whiterun, sending her to Bleak Falls Barrow to obtain the Dragonstone. The Dragon's Reach court figured her for a mage. She survived Helgen after all, and arrived confidently at the court wearing mage robes, which she looted off the trapped prisoner. Bleak Falls Barrow is her first real adventure, and she uses the few rudimentary spells she learned in her youth to make it through. When she learns that she is Dragonborn, she realizes that she is going to need help and training. She is not headstrong or full of confidence in any martial or magical abilities, so she heads to the College of Winterhold to help her fulfill her role as Dragonborn. Private tutelage here costs money, but fortunately she knows how to set up a business. She starts a new mercantile empire from scratch. After becoming the Thane of Whiterun, she begins by establishing a farm at Golden Hills Plantation near Rorikstead. The passive income is fitting considering her backstory, and allows her to pay for lessons. She meets the various potion vendors across Skyrim and forms new business connections. We roleplay that the potions she crafts and sells are her business arrangements with these vendors, supplying them with stock potions to sell. As the playthrough progressed, we put Golden Hills money to good use by purchasing all 3 Hearthfire homes. These garden plots are focused on alchemy ingredients and are managed by her housecarls. She becomes a land baroness, managing the income of 4 farms across Skyrim. Housecarls and stewards can be viewed as employees. All put together, she will have over a dozen people working for her, growing region-appropriate crops and ingredients. But some of the best ingredients can't be grown in Skyrim at all and must be imported. So she frequently checks in with the Khajiit traders for the rarest and most potent ingredients. More on that in the potions section. While the 4 farms are her source of income, she prefers to live at Proudspire Manor, the fanciest house in the game centered in the cultural hub of Skyrim's capital. Close to the best spiced wine vendors, tailors, the Bard's College, and the Blue Palace. She is no stranger to rubbing shoulders with nobility, so the mission to infiltrate the Thalmor embassy goes off without a hitch. She speaks with each Jarl and becomes the Thane of every hold. As the Archmage, we like to view this as a sort of arcane advisor position she holds, keeping tabs on the magical phenomenon of each hold. Her negotiation skills are put to use when brokering a treaty between the Stormcloaks and Imperials, and as the story progresses, she finds more and more effective ways to unlock her power with alchemy. The White Phial is an excellent opportunity to learn ancient crossover techniques between enchanting and alchemy, and she is inspired to combine the crafts herself. With her alchemical creations and the legendary Staff of Hasedoki, she is able to defeat all 3 great threats of Tamriel, Alduin, Miraak, and Harkon. She is not motivated by magical power though. She would much rather live a peaceful life of quiet luxury, well earned by effectively managing her business. Now let's go over gameplay specifics. She is weak to magic and physical hits, so she relies on high mobility to stay out of danger. The Ring of the Wind lets her move faster than her pursuers and position herself so she's always in the sweet spot, safe from attackers but close enough to deal AoE damage. Speaking of the Ring of the Wind, this build takes advantage of the fact that the movement speed enchantment is classified as illusion, so potions of Fortify Illusion raise its effectiveness. Unfortunately, you will have to fish this ring out to get it, so it will require a bit of an RNG grind. But don't let that stop you, it's totally worth it. To improve your chances, progress the fishing questline until you acquire the Dwarven Rod, which significantly increases your chance of fishing up items. She is not a warrior and not comfortable as a magic combatant, so her preferred spells are the 3 elemental cloak spells, Fire, Frost, and Lightning. These are boosted in power and range when dual cast, and boosted even further by Fortify Destruction potions. We are also taking all 3 of the associated elemental perks in the Destruction tree, which trigger when an enemy reaches low health, sending enemies fleeing in fear for fire, freezing them solid for ice, and disintegrating them for shock. Since you deal damage over time, you'll trigger these effects on all enemies that aren't immune, so when entering combat, pick the element that the enemy is weak to, or will have the low health effect you want. It's fun to knock frozen enemies around with the Staff of Hasedoki or Unrelenting Force. Using these in the early game is tricky, since they have a high cost and the range isn't quite far enough to settle into the playstyle of staying on the run while dealing damage. Also, they interact in a weird way with dragons. A base cast of an elemental cloak does not have a wide enough range to hit them at all, even when you're standing immediately in front of them. There's a surprising lack of information on the internet about this, so just know that you will need enough magicka to dual cast and start using Fortify Destruction potions to be effective against dragons. This means you really need to get some destruction and alchemy levels as soon as possible to get this build rolling. Fortunately, she will get plenty of money from her Golden Hills farm and selling potions, so she can afford to buy training from Feralda. Even though this is a cloak build, we did allow ourselves to use the novice level destruction spells. Since they deal a constant stream of damage, it felt fitting, and we needed something for the early game. But we didn't use projectile spells. She is an alchemist first, after all. Also, maybe projectile spells require a certain amount of time for mastery that she just doesn't have the time or the aptitude for. If you miss your shot, what then? All of that magicka was spent for nothing. She's much too practical to take those kinds of risks. The only other school of magic we used is Alteration for general defense from flesh spells. Sometimes you will get hit by a stray arrow or get backed into a corner. Also, the 30% magic resistance from the skill tree is needed to help offset the apprentice stone. For her shouts, we want to stay mobile and move enemies around, so for the most part we stuck with the classic trio of Unrelenting Force, Become Ethereal, and Whirlwind Sprint. Another good one is Drain Vitality, since it keeps to the damage over time theme with the cloak spells, so that's a good option to mix into general gameplay. Dragon Aspect is used when you need more defense, as it adds 100 points of armor. Now let's talk alchemy, the bread and butter of this build. As she progresses her skills, she gravitates towards alchemy. Her career as an ingredient vendor has exposed her to the craft, so she feels connected to it. With time, she makes a name for herself with her ability to create new and effective potions, becoming a master the likes of which is rarely seen. We are also using enchanting in this build, though mainly as a way to boost potions even further by making a 4-piece Fortify Alchemy outfit. There are 2 potions she will use regularly, and they'll form the foundation of her gameplay. The first is an old favorite we call Spark of Life, which fortifies destruction and health, and is made with an easy-to-farm blend of ingredients, nightshade, wheat, and glowing mushroom. In her travels, she becomes a supplier for an eccentric Argonian wizard who taught her the basics of this essential potion. Up next is Fleetfoot Elixir, which is a Fortify Illusion and Regenerate Stamina potion made with Mora Tapanella, Scalyfoliota, and Dragon's Tongue. The illusion effect will boost the Ring of the Wind, and the stamina regen helps in her sprinting through combat. Again, all 3 ingredients are easily plantable. The Holy Grail ingredient from Rare Curios is called Watcher's Eye, which includes a Fortify Illusion effect, but with 5 times the magnitude. It's a lucky day when the Khajiit merchants carry this. With it, she can brew a super-powered illusion potion to boost her speed even more. She has to be selective in how and when it's used, as the ingredient is rare. The next 2 useful concoctions are General Regenerate Magicka and Invisibility Potions. We will include Regenerate Magicka on her enchanted apparel, and will also use the Apprentice Stone. So potions of Regenerate Magicka are much more useful in this build than they normally are, since all of these sources of regen will stack together. Once her cloak is up, she spends a lot of time in combat just running around not casting any spells, so there's plenty of time to regenerate the magicka needed to cast another cloak when the time runs out. Unfortunately, Jazbay grapes are the only plantable ingredient with this effect, so keep an eye out for the following ingredients to combine with the grapes: salt pile, dwarven oil, fire salts, garlic, taproot, and moon sugar. From Rare Curios, check with the Khajiit for purple butterfly wing, screaming maw, thorn hook, minotaur horn, lycor, scrib jelly, and healing salts. Finally, we need potions of invisibility to put the visual of this build together. We used these all the time to roleplay the completed potion, transforming her into a whirling storm of destruction. So stock up on the following ingredients whenever you find them: Ice Wraith Teeth, Luna Moth Wing, Nirn Root, Vampire Dust, and Charis Eggs. Of this list, Charis Eggs are the most plentiful, so we recommend pairing a Charis Egg with most of the others for each potion. That way you get the most mileage out of your ingredients. Luckily, she has a great friend in Thistle the Rabbit, who she finds in the Alchemist's shack south of Iverstead. You can feed it carrots to make it your pet, and it will go pick ingredients for you. We imagine Thistle becoming super pampered and learning to love the finer ingredients in life, living with the Baroness in Proudspire Manor and traveling the world with her. One surefire way to evoke the wrath of this otherwise mild-mannered orc is to attack her precious rabbit. Now let's discuss her outfit and equipment. The only weapon she needs is the powerful and storied Staff of Hasedoki, which grants a passive ward while equipped, launches a forceful projectile, and applies Soul Trap. You can start the quest to get this staff by reading the smuggler's notes in the unmarked bandit camp north of Whiterun. For the sake of the roleplay, we did not pick up any black soul gems, and we used the white star instead of the black star. This way she doesn't accidentally trap mortal souls. Yagrum Bagarn included an entry about the Staff of Hasedoki in his compendium called Tamrielic Lore. In it, he says, Hasedoki was said to have been a very competitive wizard. He wandered the land in search for a wizard who was greater than he. To the best of all knowledge, he never found a wizard who could meet up to his challenge. It is said that he felt so lonely and isolated because so many feared his power, that he bonded his life force into his very own staff, where his soul remains to this very day. Magic users all over Tamriel have been searching for this magical staff. Granting its wielder a protection of magicka, it is a sure prize for any magic user. This staff tends to feel overpowered whenever we tried to make a build around it, but for this build, it allows her to lean into the mobility playstyle and keep herself safe while dealing damage passively. You can use the staff to group enemies together so they're all within range of the elemental cloak at the same time. Her Baroness robes consist of pieces that accentuate her wealthy and upper-class status. She appreciates the finer things in life, and it's reflected in her apparel. She wears a copper and moonstone circlet enchanted with Fortify Destruction and Fortify Alteration, the blue variant of the fine robes enchanted with Magicka Regeneration and Fortify Destruction, boatswain shoes enchanted with Fortify Stamina and Resist Frost, fine arm guards enchanted with Fortify Magicka and Fortify Alchemy. You can pick up a set of these arm guards in Mirwatch, and the rest can be purchased at Radiant Raiment. For auxiliary gear, she will wear a gold diamond necklace enchanted with Resist Magic and Fortify Magicka, and the Ring of the Wind, which fortifies movement speed by 15%. Moving on to stats and perks, the Elemental Baroness will need a big enough magicka pool to dual cast elemental cloaks, but she'll also need some stamina to help with her mobility. so the ratio is about 3 in magicka, 1 in health, and 2 in stamina. This is flexible as long as you have enough magicka to dual cast cloak spells. Feel free to take what you feel would be most beneficial. For the standing stone, we picked the Apprentice Stone, which doubles magicka regen but makes you twice as susceptible to magic damage. Her high mobility and passive ward on the staff help offset this drawback, and her playstyle lends itself to building around regeneration. Dual cast a cloak spell, and the regeneration will be enough to dual cast once again once the spell wears off. Finally, for the race, we picked Orc, mainly because a fancy, well-dressed orc sounded like a fun character to roleplay as. They are also the second tallest race behind High Elves, and height does improve movement speed. By the time you reach level 40, you will want the following perks. In Destruction, take the Novice through Adept perks, dual casting, and all of the perks in all 3 of the elemental branches. In Alteration, take Novice through Adept perks, all 3 in Magic Resistance, all 3 in Mage Armor, dual casting, and Stability. In Enchanting, take all 5 in Enchanter, Corpus Enchanter, Insightful Enchanter, and Extra Effect. In Alchemy, take all 5 in Alchemist, Physician, and Benefactor. After level 40, it would be a good idea to get the final perk on this tree, Purity, since there are some invisibility potion combinations that include negative effects when you use Charis eggs. Restoration would be the next best tree to branch into for the Ward Absorb perk and 50% more magicka regen. Some additional perks to seek out are Seeker of Shadows for 10% stronger potions, Secret of Arcana to remove spell cost for 30 seconds once per day, Agent of Mara for 15% magic resistance, and Sindarian Serendipity, which gives you a chance to craft 2 potions instead of 1. Alright, moving on to our favorite part of every build, the special moves. Her first special move is Aspect of Elements, which comprises the basis of her gameplay. First, drink the 2 potions Spark of Life and Fleetfoot Elixir, dual cast an Elemental Cloak, then drink an Invisibility Potion to complete the transformation. We imagine the imbibed concoction transforming her into a whirling elemental storm. With the increased movement speed from the Ring of the Wind, she floats gracefully through the battlefield, always out of reach of enemy blades. They swing helplessly as they are burned, sapped, or frozen to death. Up next is a simple but effective and fun combat opener called Flame Charge. Shout Whirlwind Sprint into a pack of enemies and unleash the greater power immediately on arrival. There is no wind-up animation to Sunflare, so you can trigger it at the exact moment Whirlwind Sprint ends. Up next is Dremora Rendezvous, which is a combination of the Mask of Clavicus Vial, Dremora Merchant, and the Shrine of Zenithar at Crumbling Bastion, just north of Broken Fang Cave in the Whiterun Tundra. One day, as she traveled east from her farm, she noticed a strange Dunmer wizard conversing with the Dremora. She snuck close enough to investigate and learned how to do business with the Deadlands. Finally, we have the ultimate tank spell, Draconic Armor, which combines the 100 points of armor gained from Dragon Aspect, halved damage from Berserker Rage, and an 80% reduction from the Greater Power Bones of Earth. Sometimes physical damage is unavoidable. The arena might be too constrained to effectively kite an enemy around, so she uses the power of her Thum to conjure herself bound Draconic Armor, and her Dragonblood hardens, significantly protecting her from incoming hits. And with those special moves completed, we are ready to wrap up the Elemental Baroness. This playthrough was a lot of fun, and so was making the video. If you give it a try, we hope you enjoy it as much as we did. Stop into our Discord to let us know how it goes. As always, a huge shout out to Vincefept for his composition Spellbound, which we used in this video. Please head over to his channel to show some support. If you'd like to support our channel further, we do have cool antler helmet swag in the merch shop. We still have more monthly builds planned, so if you haven't already, please be sure to like and subscribe to help us keep the magic of Skyrim alive. We'll see you next time, right here on Skypothesis.